Welcome to episode 23 of the Fun Dad, Dean and Wife Unfiltered podcast. I am Dean.
And I am Sarah.
And we have started this podcast to give a true representation of parenting.
We are here to give you unfiltered, realistic discussions about how we are trying to parent our two young children, hold down two jobs, keep our house semi-respectable, along with attempting a social life. And today we are lucky enough to be joined by another incredible guest to cover a topic that is ever prevalent in our household and for many of our listeners too. We are thrilled to announce that today in the studio we have Charlotte Stirling-Reed, a well-renowned nutritionist known as the baby and child nutritionist, along with being an author, owner of her own consultancy, SR Nutrition, podcast host and mum of two.
Thank you for that introduction. I love that.
You're super busy. Wow. Charlotte has helped to support thousands of families with feeding their babies, toddlers and young children. And we are really hoping that she can help us today.
Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you guys for having me on. And I really hope I can help you too, for sure.
I'm really hoping you can as well, because for us, mealtimes are super
This is the hardest thing about parenting for us.
Okay, well,
It
definitely.
is.
And I love it. I love talking about this topic. I think it is so important because we have to eat multiple times a day. And if that's a stressful time for you and your family, it has massive impact. So, yes, let's fix it.
We will delve in. But I didn't have Instagram when my eldest was a baby. She's now 10. And obviously, we're always going on about sometimes the hate that can be manifested on social media and content and things like that for new mums, and sometimes the perfect you see someone else with their baby on Instagram, you're seeing a snippet of their day. It's not really like that. But I wish I discovered a page like yours when the kids were young, don't you, Dean?
Would have been a lot different, I think, for us.
It would have been so much different. That absolute just library of help sitting on your page. I wish we'd discovered it before.
We've ballsed it up, haven't we?
But first of all, it's never too late. And second of all, sometimes I do think it's great. Social media is so great. There's so many positives, but you also can have too much advice. And I think a lot of the time there's loads of conflicting, and also, you guys all know you get lots of people who are giving you advice that actually might also not be helpful or kind, or, so I think that there's pros and cons of it. But my aim with my social media, my page, is I know how hard it can be. And when I was feeding my son, I was putting out advice on what I was doing with him. And this was 7 years ago. And people were going, oh my gosh, tell me more. And I just realised there and then, people don't have access to this information.
No.
And if you look online, there is a lot of help online, but it's often very vague, and it often leaves you with more questions than answers. So I honestly, there and then, after feeding him, was like, I'm going to be the space that actually fills in all these gaps, that helps to answer these questions. So yeah, I love that. And I'm sorry I wasn't there before, but we're here now.
You're here now, because that was one of the main things we wanted to ask. And for those listeners who listen to our podcast regularly on the weekly basis, they'll know that a theme that has been going through the last year, we do touch on.
I'm always talking about it on my page. I get so many DMs as well, people with the same problems. It's really relatable stuff. It's so stressful for us.
And I know there's a lot of help out there about weaning and the toddler and baby stage, but what we wanted to kind of just address quickly first of all was, sometimes I'm wondering to myself, our eldest is 10. Is it too late to build good eating habits? Have we missed the boat here?
Definitely not. I'm not going to say it's easy, because as they get older, it definitely gets harder. You've got to think a lot of these things are familiarity and habits. But that definitely doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about it. There is loads. And sometimes it's actually about doing less. So I really hope that that's one thing that we can take away from today, is that it isn't always about acting and doing. Sometimes it's about not acting and not doing those things. And I'll come on to that. But honestly, it is not too late. There's loads you can do. And the other thing is, tastes change all the time. And I think that sometimes with kids, exactly. And sometimes with kids, we kind of think, oh, right, well, they don't like that. Oh, well, that's not going to work. But actually, they will evolve just as we did. We probably don't like exactly the same things we liked when we were kids either. So we evolve, they will evolve. And I always think as well, the kind of grounding that you give them in terms of your relationship with food, and if you guys enjoy food at home, then that will have a knock-on effect in the future. But that doesn't mean there's not things that you can do right now to improve it as well.
I mean, we definitely enjoy food.
Oh, there you go.
Doesn't seem to pass down.
It will, honestly.
So I think just setting the context, for example, one of the biggest obstacles that we face in terms of routine as a family, and this is something that a lot of my teacher friends relate to, those in the teaching world, because basically I went back to work when my eldest was 7 months old, and we didn't really have back then like a consistent childcare. So we had a couple of days was a nanny, wasn't it? And then it was Dean's mum, my mum, sometimes Dean's friends. Like we were, as childcare when Daisy was young was a struggle. And I think because she was only 7 months old, we didn't build up those good weaning habits. It was very much, so-and-so's having her today. What can she have?
Just get her fed. It was basically just get her fed with something, anything. Just make sure
whatever
she's eating.
Yeah, and I suppose it's that idea of now that we've got an older children, and we have got and we're not the ones feeding them that often, are we, in certain days of the week? How, as working parents who get in at, like last night, for example, we got in at 20 to 7. It's hard, if you're not, because I know some great advice out there is to eat as a family, but Monday to Friday, that's just not feasible for us. So what kind of advice can you give?
Yeah, and I think that is really common for a lot of families. And I think, yes, eating together is great as much as you can. And routine actually does really help, having that regular routine. But I totally get it. And I think parenting's really hard, especially in the 21st century. And we're supposed to be like perfect workers and perfect teachers and perfect parents. It's not really possible to do it all. One of the things I often say to parents is, first of all, if you can, make a big deal of it at the weekend. So, for example, with your kids, you might do like a film night. And instead of it being just sit down and watch a film, you might get the blankets out, and you might get some snacks out, and you might get hot chocolate, and everyone's in their pajamas, and you make a big deal of it. So for me, one of the things that you can try and do is on those weekends, try and make a big deal of your meal times together. Okay. It doesn't have to be about the food. It can be about the time. It can be about the routine. It can be about, right, let's make this mealtime something that actually we are all going to want to be a part of. Like, this is a sit down together. This is a part of our family connection time. I know that sounds really cringe, but I think that that's often what we don't do. It's like the rushing through dinner. It's the what can we quickly make? Whereas actually tablecloths, sit together, get them involved, ask them to lay the table, play something really quickly around the table. I don't know, like a double or articulate or something around the table to get them wanting to be at it. Because what we all focus on as parents is getting them to eat. And actually what we want is to get them to want to be a part of that food and mealtime. And you know what kids want? They want our connection and our attention more than anything else. So like phones away, everything away, work away. This is our family time, just like we would do for those cinema nights. But can we make that really regular for our meal times? And honestly, that is the first step in helping them to build a relationship with food and enjoy food, is helping them enjoy being with you when you're eating. They don't even have to eat it. Don't even worry about them eating it to start with. Just make that a part of your family occasion, your connection, your, enjoyment together. I can't tell, if I say to my kids, we're going to have a film night tonight, they're like, yes, it's like the best thing. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what the film is. It doesn't matter what we're eating. It's me and my husband and the two kids, and we're together, and that's what they love.
So don't get stressed when they don't eat it, because we've done this a few times, like roast dinners on a Sunday, and they look at it just like not eating. And
I tried,
and we're like, age on that, and it's just like they just don't. It's really frustrating.
And
you get frustrated.
I try to get frustrated because I also try. I try to get them involved sometimes in the cooking of it. And so they'll be chopping the ends off the green beans or like doing something.
Love that.
And they do, to be fair,
we've done it once and then we're like, they don't eat, they give up.
You
have to be like more.
I think what put me off was one instance that I will tell you about, and it was that idea of, so basically I was like, I'm going to really try with Daisy at the moment. This was years ago. And I thought, I'm going to involve her in the shopping process. So we went to Asda and we decided, right, what are we going to make together? And we decided we were going to make lasagna, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that was a bit of a mistake because it was quite rich. Anyway, so I thought, right, we'll make lasagna. So we were involved in the cooking process. We made it together. We put the timer on. We looked in the oven. We got out of the oven. Me and Dean and Daisy, we all sat down and we all ate it together. And as she was eating it, I could kind of look at her thinking, I don't think she likes it.
Okay.
And I thought, but she was eating it. But I think the problem, she was eating it to please me. For the wrong reasons. And I was obviously saying, like, well done for eating it. I wasn't praising her for trying it. I was just more like saying, oh, well done, you're doing really well, you're eating it, like, eat the whole thing, whatever. Anyway, so she ate it, and then half an hour later she threw up.
Oh, bless her little heart. But, you know, first of all, don't feel guilty about that, because you're just doing, like, in that moment, you're doing what you think she needs. And like you say, she's possibly eating to please you, which you don't want. So one of the absolute keys that people need to take away around fussy eating is, if you put pressure on to eat up, it has the exact opposite
we
effect.
do that all the time.
Yeah.
I'd say we're quite forceful. We're like, not forceful, but we're like, just eat some more, just eat this bit, just eat this bit. And constantly at them all the time, because we're like so desperate for them to eat. And it's like that desperation to get them to eat, otherwise they'll be hungry and moody. Yeah. That's kind of, aren't we? That's where we get stuck.
Totally get that, especially when you've got to, you know, the age that your kids are now, and you're thinking like, right, we really need to change this. Let's do this. So the automatic reaction, and as a parent, like, you want your kid to eat because you know for survival they have to eat. You also hear all these messages about healthy eating, and you're like, oh my God, I need to get them to healthy eat in order for me to be a good parent. This is what I've got to do. But actually, we know so much research shows the more pressure you put on, the less inclined they are to eat. If you say to them, I really want you to eat that broccoli, their brain is literally going to go, I don't want to eat that broccoli. I'm being forced to eat it. There's a reason I'm being forced to eat it, and now I'm going to oppose that because I don't want to do it. I gave them broccoli the other day,
and they ate it first. I didn't even tell them. I just gave it, and they started, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, there you go. Honestly, I promise you, if you take the pressure off, because we all do it. We're like, I mean, I remember growing up and my mum separating things on the plate and being like, just eat that half. And, you know, mealtimes in our house were quite stressful because my mum was always trying to get us to eat millet and, you know, really healthy food. And my brother and I, like, hiding it under coasters and... it's like a grain. But honestly, the pressure has the opposite effect. That's what you've got to think. It's nonchalance around the mealtime. It's nonchalance, it's feeding yourself, it's letting them see you enjoying it, and it's making that environment...
Almost like don't care if they eat or not. Going with that attitude, just feed them. If they don't eat before school, and then do you need to give them more food, or do they just go hungry? Because that's another thing we struggle with, isn't it?
See, I don't struggle with breakfast as much as you do. It's weird as well. I feel like sometimes they're quite manipulative. Can I say that about Charlotte? I feel like sometimes they are. They're quite manipulative in the sense where, particularly our youngest, she'll be like, no, mummy make it, because daddy's pancakes aren't the same as mummy's pancakes, doesn't she? Yours are not better. Dean makes his pancakes. They look like frisbees. They look like if you threw it across the room,
knock someone out.
Are they American? Yeah, big American ones. I love it.
But I think as well, for us, when the kids were growing up, there were mistakes that we did make. Like, one thing I did want to ask, only because even now I've got a lovely young little nephew, and he's a good eater, isn't he?
Oh, he's fabulous. He comes around, we look after him, we just give him food, and he just goes, oh, you're eating it? Well, with no one asking you to eat it.
No one's pushing it in your mouth. Yeah.
It's incredible.
But it's interesting, because I look after him quite a lot. My sister's now having another baby. Congratulations, Megan. And I obviously will look after the children. He's coming on Friday. But something that me and Dean have always really panicked about is that idea of the choke versus the gag. So, because, I mean, Dean...
I still worry about it, even though they're like 10 and 5.
I wondered if that impacted your, like, do you think that impacted your experience of, like, weaning them? Were you nervous?
Definitely for you.
Oh, definitely. I still don't like it now. Okay. Like, even she's 5, if she's got like a sweet or something, I think she could choke, and I'm like, no, you sit down and eat that. You're not
well, it's good to be careful with those things, especially those, you know, people always talk about all these foods that are like choking hazards, and then they're like eating round lollipops and like really hard sweets, and I'm like, but it's good to be vigilant, but definitely, like, if you're anxious around the food, that can also have a real knock-on effect. I always say to parents, especially like if you're stressed around mealtimes, to like take yourself away, like have a quick breather and try and like ground yourself a bit before you come to the table, so that you don't look like it's the same as like if you're having this like, bet they're not going to eat it, bet they're not going to eat it, like they will pick up on that. They will literally pick up on that fear.
I get scared if I've made something,
especially if you spent hours,
and it's new and I've spent ages making it, and then I kind of put it down and I look at them as if, please
Yeah.
And that rubs off them. They can probably feel that energy.
Yeah. They're like, aha, right, we're gonna refuse this now, and she's
whenever
gonna
we need them to eat, they don't.
Exactly. But that is honestly that sensing the pressure, and I think like it's so hard because it almost goes against nature. But that, like you say, acting like you don't care whether they eat it or not, that on itself will have an impact.
What if they don't eat though? What if you give them a plate of food for dinner and they don't eat it? What would you do then? Just let them not eat it?
So first of all, it's really tricky. I'm not saying like, I know you mentioned an example where they sometimes will literally go all day and not eat. Yeah. I think it's really, really tricky when you have that situation. But there's a few things you can do in the interim. So first of all, if you're giving them something that you're like, this is new, I'm not sure if they're going to eat it, try and think about other things that maybe you could have given them beforehand, like you can give them beforehand during the day that you know will definitely get eaten. So what are some absolute safes and guarantees that they will eat?
Ferrero Rochers?
No. Well, fill them up on those. No.
I'm joking.
Do you know what though? You say that, fill them up on those. Sometimes in the back of my head, my philosophy with our eldest, because her go-to food, isn't it? Blueberries, golden kiwis, prawns. She once had a massive tantrum because I wouldn't buy her a prawn sandwich. Like, she doesn't eat sandwiches anymore, though.
She likes eating, but she's fussy.
But what
but
she
it's
likes...
almost like a control thing, possibly.
Yeah, maybe. But what she likes as well, I find quite frustrating because, like you say, sometimes I'll give her dinner. Like, she likes fajitas one day and then doesn't the next. But she'll eat... Sometimes I give her fajitas with broccoli on the side and she'll eat the broccoli, she'll eat the red pepper, and then she says, I'm done. Yeah. And I'm thinking... But then in her head, because she's in year 5 now, she knows the difference between healthy and unhealthy. She's like, but mummy, I've been healthy. But all I'm thinking in my head is, but you've eaten like 100 calories.
Like 50,
And then, you know, after dinner, then she wants, the other day she hadn't eaten her dinner and she was, but I want some blueberries. And she can eat a whole punnet of blueberries. But again, I'm thinking to myself, you haven't eaten enough calories. Don't you want a donut from the cupboard? I'll give you a donut if you want a donut.
You'd rather give her calories.
I'm thinking more at that point about calories because of what she is eating. It is a minefield, and I totally agree with you. I think children are quite intuitive at knowing what they need to eat, and also I'm not saying they won't let themselves go hungry, but largely they're not going to starve themselves. So not eating dinner is going to result in them probably being really hungry when they wake up. Like my kids do that. They wake up in the morning and they are hangry. And you're like, I need to get you some food before you absolutely melt down at me. So sometimes it's about building that up. And also sometimes it's about learning. Like if they end up being really hungry, they're like, okay, probably didn't eat enough at dinner. And it is that learning. I'm not saying they do that really easily. But the other thing you can do as well when you're worried about, right, I'm going to give them this food, they're not going to eat it, is sides. Sides are your best friend, honestly. Okay. And I think one of the things I try and recommend parents do is, you know, I talk about this experience of dinner, but also have like these little mini buffets. So like, what's in your fridge? Can you have like a plate of grated cheese, some broccoli on the side? Can you have some, I don't know, pasta? What other things that they will also eat and allow them to serve themselves? Those kind of like meals where you give them control, give them autonomy, encourage self-serving, they can make a really big difference to how much your kids eat. And again, if you do it with that nice environment, with the non-pressure, with the nonchalance about when they touch it, when you're sitting there serving yourself, sitting there eating yourself and just not paying attention to what they're doing, they are so much more likely to dig in. And if you've done like this brand new meal they've never tried before, but you've got 3 or 4 sides they might eat, at least they are getting something in. And I think if you're finding every single night dinner is being refused, you could introduce like a small snack pre-bedtime. It might be like crackers and cheese. It might be like milk and a banana. So, but I would personally do it regularly rather than it being like, if you haven't eaten your dinner, we will give you this. Because ultimately then they learn.
They always have a snack though, no matter what, don't they?
After dinner.
They always have a
You won't put them to bed without a snack. She wouldn't never put them to bed without a snack, would you? Because they're going to bed hungry.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, but it's just going back quickly just to a point you just said about, you know, when you were saying put the dishes out and let them help themselves. Do you know their favourite restaurant is Harvester? And that resonates so much, thinking why? Because they love the salad bar.
I promise you. So those couple of things, like doing that, I've been talking about this loads on my Instagram recently, and I have had so many parents write to me say, Tried it. It's absolutely changed mealtimes just by having the self-serve. So I do what I call fridge raid. So I literally look in the fridge, be like, right, bit of cucumber, that needs using up. Bit of sweet corn, maybe little, some tuna, prawns, whatever. Bung it on the table with whatever their meal is and let them help themselves decide. The autonomy, the non-pressure, the allowing them to be involved. Like, it's almost a bit of a novelty, like, I can put as much as I want on my plate. That can be a real game changer.
That sounds a great
Definitely try that.
That does
Definitely
make a
try
lot
that.
of sense.
And you can add like bread if you're worried about them not filling up. You can add things like, it doesn't have to be mountains of it, but like pita breads on the side or bits of bread or proteins that you think might fill them up a bit. And most of them, they might not get touched, but actually, if you're eating them and you're not putting pressure on and they're enjoying being part of that mealtime and they're watching you eating it, I guarantee you, give it a few months and they will start to try the things that they haven't been eating as well.
I'm not going to lie, I've always kind of taken the mick out of, those people, I don't know if you're one of them, and I kind of wish I could be this kind of person, but I'm just not. Have really organised fridges, kind of like, with the different compartments and the labels. But I am thinking if we very much had even just one shelf in our fridge, because they're constantly going in the fridge.
Food in our fridge.
Like, oh God, here we go.
No, true.
No, because they eat it. So, for example, on Sunday, or was it on Saturday? So one of the days at the weekend, I went to Asda, did a really expensive shop, didn't I? Loads of blueberries, loads of golden kiwis, loads of mango.
We mortgaged for those.
I wish they loved bananas and apples, but they don't.
Yeah,
they like the expensive berries.
Yeah, and strawberries. And by Monday, it was gone. I had to go to Asda again, spent another £55. I think £30 of that was on fruit. But again, because they're so fussy, I feel like I need to feed them on that.
And
but
blueberries are good for them as well.
Oh, definitely. But I wonder as well with are they grazing quite a lot?
Yes, they're grazers.
Okay.
100%.
So that is...
Grace put a lock on the fridge.
That's a massive impact as well on those mealtime appetites.
Yeah.
So if they are having basically if they're grazing a lot throughout the day, if you think about it, when you go out for dinner and you're like, I really want to be hungry because I really want to eat my food.
You're paying for it.
You have that desire to eat. When you get there, you're like, oh my God, I have such a desire to eat. I cannot wait to eat this food. If kids are grazing all day, bearing in mind, a mealtime is usually oh God, I can't be bothered. I want to play. I want to be doing this. I want to be reading or whatever it is they love to do outside of that. They're going to be reluctant to come to the table. If they don't have any hunger, they're going to be sitting there thinking, why? I don't want to sit here and eat this food that isn't really something I'm really excited about. There's no drive to eat. So the grazing has such an impact on appetite.
Yeah, if they're starving, they will eat it. They will normally. Like on a Monday, if they come in starving when I feed them, they normally always demolish it.
Yeah, because Dean's had a little bit of a new plan. So basically... on a Monday. Do you want to explain your plan?
On a Monday, I put the food on before I go and get them. When I come back in, it's all ready because they're always starving. I don't eat that much at lunch. Lunchbox of the nightmare, we'll come on to that. But I feed them, and normally they do demolish it.
Yeah.
It's not the best meal, so I'm working, but it's got some broccoli on it. But they normally demolish it because they're starving.
Yeah, but also, do you do that... because that is exactly what I do. Do you do that without a snack? So you don't take a snack to pick up.
No snack. No, yes, I want them to be starving again, so they eat it. It's not stressful.
Because I was picking my kids up and they're always begging for snacks. And you see so many people in the school run with Kit Kats and crisps. And I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, the dinner's ready as soon as we get home.
Yeah.
But I've stopped
taking snacks. They can wait 10 minutes to get home from the school run.
So we get home and they are so hungry. And honestly, on those days where they have not had a snack and they've come straight home, they will demolish the food.
Yeah.
It is honestly, the grazing thing is massive. So even if you have snacks are fine, but routine them. So you know what times they're coming. Because if the kids are helping themselves to snacks, they don't have a desire or a drive to eat. There is no oh my God, I'm hungry, I've got to eat this food. It's just I can give or take it.
How do you stop a 10-year-old going to the fridge? Because Daisy's literally...
Yeah.
If she's hungry, she's backwards and forwards.
The other day, my mum had them. It was the Tuesday. So again, I said I'd done the Asda shop on the weekend. Then I'd gone to Asda on the Monday night, bought loads more. It was the Tuesday. My mum had them at our house on the Tuesday and I got in from work. I looked on the side and there was just 2 of the large empty packets of blueberries on the side. We had a packet each.
Oh, £6 sitting there staring at you.
That's about £50.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh God, it is. That is really tricky. That is really tricky, and especially when they get older and they are used to in that habit of helping themselves. And obviously things like blueberries, they're not hugely filling, but it is going to reduce that desire for hunger at the meal times. So I think what I always say is with kids, especially with young kids, have a routine. You can have all the snacks you want at this point, at this time. Once it gets past that time, we're not going to have snacks till dinner time because, the grazing will massively impact how long they want to be at the table, whether they want to eat, especially if it's something new. You know, if you went to a restaurant, you weren't hungry. Like, I love this example. Like, if you went to a restaurant with your friends and you weren't that hungry because you'd eaten food, and someone put something down in front of you that was really like, I don't know, eels or something that you've not eaten before, and your friends around the table are going, eat it, or just eat that bit. They're like hovering over you. They're going, come on, that's been cooked for you by the chef. Would you want to go back to that?
Knock them out.
Yeah. Would you go back to that situation?
No.
But what we're expecting our kids to do is come back to that situation every day. I'm not hungry. I've got a plate of food here that I've not really seen before, I'm not familiar with, and everyone's forcing me to eat it. They don't want to be there again. No. So next time, their memory is, oh God, what happened last mealtime? Same thing's going to happen. Same thing's going to happen.
They just see it as a stressful time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we have to change. Think about when you go out with your friends and like what makes you want to be there, and try and emulate that at home.
So that's another point I really wanted to come on to. And this is something Dean often does videos about, and they seem to be a lot of people in this same boat. And I can see it from both sides, so I'd love to know your impartial opinion. Lunch boxes. Okay. So we made the decision to give our children packed lunch because they were not accessing the school dinners at all. That's fine. We made that decision. And
you did.
Well, I didn't.
They just weren't eating school dinners. We didn't have a choice. Did we?
But I'm going to say come from both sides now, and Dean obviously can come from his side as well. So Dean packs the lunches in the mornings, most mornings, and they come home, and they're often full.
Half full at least, at best,
or
really.
Sometimes Daisy's just eating her red pepper.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
And
I look in there and I'm like, girls, you haven't eaten nothing. What is going on?
So sometimes...
And I sort of get a bit angry with the school a bit in my head. I'm like, they should have made meat a little bit. You know what I mean?
I'm devil's advocate on Dean's shoulder to say, well, I am a teacher and I've experienced children who open their lunchbox, inhale it all and can eat the whole thing and could probably eat a school dinner as well. Like that's their habits. And I've also got children whose parents are constantly saying to me, you know, they're not eating enough in school. They're coming home and they're absolutely starving and they're hangry. And as they're talking to me, I'm thinking, I know my children do exactly the same, but I don't want to diminish what they're saying to me. This is a concern for them.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I don't want to start telling them, saying, oh, I know how you feel, kind of thing. I have to listen to their concerns.
Yeah.
But actually, as a teacher, we're there in the lunch hall, you know, sometimes we've got 60, 90 children, and you're trying to encourage them to eat, because some of them do need a little bit of encouragement. But what advice would you give, A, to the parent of the child who's coming home and their lunchbox hasn't been touched when it's all things they like, and B, to the teachers that are in the room, what's the best strategy?
Okay, it is really, lunchboxes drive people mad. It's really hard. And like, you know, my kids would do the same. Like, you know, my son, when he goes to sports club, he does eat school lunches because I'm like, I just can't do the lunchboxes every day. I don't know how you do it. I just don't have time.
Oh, it's such a pain in the arse. They all come back full and you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, it's so hard.
The money that just comes back.
Yeah, it's so true. But what I would generally say is, first of all, don't sweat it. If you can front and end load the meals, I talk loads about making the most of meals, as in like when you're offering breakfast, whack out everything. You know, again, like I say, buffet. It doesn't have to be just porridge or just toast. Yeah. Like, what can you offer with it? So I think you were saying the other day you had a kiwi that wasn't eaten and things like that.
Your strawberry from the lunchboxes,
yeah,
that comes back all
and they come all sweaty and it's so disgusting. But yeah, when in the morning, could you give some of those foods in the morning? So let's say, for example, your strawberry and your kiwi, when breakfast is served, whack it out then. And then you can still put it in the lunchbox. I'm not saying you don't put it in the lunchbox, but they've actually eaten it because they've eaten it in the morning. Or in the afternoon, like, again, could you, if you're offering a snack time or if you're offering your post-meal bed, could you include, not the ones they've taken home that have come home all sweaty, but could you include some of those foods that were in the lunchbox so they are actually getting it? The other thing I would say, and I know that's not a solution because it means that their lunchbox is, you know, avoided, but kids at school, they are, my son is terrible for stopping. He rushes everything. Is every single teacher today. They want to play. They're so distracted. They don't want to sit down and have their lunch. They've got like half an hour for lunchtime, you know. Half an hour. That's to play, to see their friends, to do whatever they want to do and to eat their lunch. It's not enough time. So for them, they're like, how can I eat this and do all the things I want. So anything you can kind of chop up, make really easy to eat, I would definitely say do that. Like even sandwiches, can you put them in like small squares? I know it sounds really ridiculous, but small squares so they can literally on the go eat, because that's what they're going to do.
It's just wraps they have.
Okay.
So I can cut it in little bits and that comes back.
Does that come back as
like
well? Yeah.
Fresh chicken, I've just bought like £5 from like M&S and like half it's in the wrap. It's like, so I put it in the fridge and I have it later because I'm not wasting that.
Delicious dinner.
What I find the most ironic about that situation as well is often, you know, they'll have that, it's chicken mayonnaise and cucumber wraps. That's what they call it. That's what they like. And then we get to the weekend and I'll say, oh, what do you want for lunch? And I'm thinking, you know, they're home. I can make cheese on toast. I can make something now that you can't have in your lunchbox. And the other day, Ruby turned around and she went,
chicken wraps?
Oh, yeah. She's like, I'll have a chicken mayonnaise and cucumber wrap.
Like, you are kidding me.
Oh,
I'm like, I've given that to you every day this week. And it's come home untouched.
Oh, but that is it. It's just they do want it. It's not that they don't want it. It's just that time at school. But the other thing, you know, and you might already do this, but like, does she help choose what goes into her lunches?
No.
Because that is the other thing as well. It's that autonomy. Like giving her, what do you want in your lunch today? This or this. Because even just that, like the fact that she feels I selected this, it might just be enough to get her to be like, do you know what, I chose this. I might actually eat it. I said I wanted it this morning. It's almost like psychologically.
You do
so
ask.
get her to choose.
Yeah,
or give
I
them
ask.
A and B.
But I also...
I have a go at her for asking. I'm like, well, you keep asking the kids what they want.
No, give them an A and B, honestly. An A and B. Don't say what do you want in the world, because when you don't have what they want, they'll be like, nah, I'm not eating that.
Well, I've done that before. I've taken our eldest. I take her to...
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about Asda today. We're like sponsored by Asda today.
Well, you ought to. I should have.
And we go in and I say to her, what do you want in your... And we're down these aisles. We're in the shop. And I say, what do you want in your lunchbox this week? And I think that that's on the flip side. That's too much choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know whether I can show her, I don't know, pictures of lunchboxes and say, well, this is what other people have. What would you want?
I think getting her involved in choosing. So maybe you go to the supermarket with a list and be like, you could have the A's and B's. Like, do you want grapes or strawberries for your lunch this week? Like, honestly, getting them involved, giving them autonomy, giving them that choice really helps. But also, can you get her involved in making it? Like, have you ever tried that? Getting her to make the wraps?
I think Daisy could.
Yeah.
Ruby would be like, nobody would eat it.
Massacred wrap at the start of the day.
I think we definitely could.
That could definitely help as well, because I get, again, like, it is just that autonomy. And the other thing I think as well, get her to clean it out at the end of the day. So when it's finished, rather than you being like, I'm going to clean this out for you, like, let her see it. Like, let be like, could you get rid of the stuff in your lunchbox?
Yeah. That links to what we were saying the other week about children and chores.
Yes.
How much chores they should do. So that could become one of her kind of daily chores.
Because even just her seeing it and being like every single day, okay, this is what I've brought home. It's just, I'm not saying it's a punishment. It's just like you say, it's giving them chores gives them, like, it's really good for them. Responsibility. Yeah. And also letting her see. So asking, like, do you want to make your wrap with me? Do you want to help me put your lunchbox together? Do you want this or this? Like, first of all, that's the autonomy. Second of all, don't sweat it, because so many kids don't. They don't have long enough to eat at school. Third of all, front load and end load the day with some of those items that you actually did want them to eat. And then, like I say, when she brings it home, say, oh, would you be able to clear out that lunch? If you want the old massacred wrap, put that in the fridge for Dad. And then could you, like, clear it out for me? Because, again, that awareness of, like, this is all going in the bin, it just might, you don't need to say that to her or, like, be a punishment, but just be like, oh, I just want you to, can you help out and
that's
do
£5 sitting in there.
Yeah.
You know that. That's £5.
Eat it.
No,
don't do that.
I think we just stress too much. That's one of our main issues. We're just stressing too much about stuff, like when the lunchbox comes.
But it's understandable, because it is a waste of money.
It is.
And you are stressing about them not having it all day.
And as a teacher then, the teacher side of me, and for any parents who maybe have moaned at their teachers, like we have brought it up with them before. We have mentioned, just so you know, they aren't eating nothing in the day. What advice would you give to the staff working in the lunch hall with these children, of those children who maybe are not eating their school dinner or their packed lunch? Do we need to worry about it too much? Or
I think it's really hard for teachers, because, how many children have they got right there then? How can you have your attention on one specific child when you've got all of them? One thing you can do, and maybe this is for, like, slightly younger, but I always think kids who eat really well, maybe with the kids who are refusing a lot of theirs or not eating so much, so that you've got those role models. I think the role modelling can really, really help as well at school. So if you can kind of mix and match the kids in that sense. And also the other thing is that really old school approach that often nurseries and schools take, which is like, well, you've got to eat your sandwich first. Like, forget it. Forget that.
Yeah.
Forget
and
that.
that's what you were trying to get them to do, weren't you?
Yeah, so eat your wrap first. Well, I said to Ruby, so she has 3 or 4 items in her lunchbox. And I say to her, you can eat your wrap or your cheese and crackers or whatever you have, your main bit, and then choose. But no, just...
I think it is, again, it's the autonomy.
Right,
it's the letting them choose. And it's also, if most of the stuff in that lunchbox is pretty healthy food, it doesn't really matter what order they eat it in. And also if they're kind of, they're probably not going to do that. If they don't want to eat that sandwich first, they're not going to do it. And what you're going to end up doing is limiting them eating the rest of it as well. Yeah. So if I was a teacher, I would be saying, again, it's that same thing of the lack of pressure. It's really hard in a school environment because obviously, you've got all these kids and you do want them to try and eat up. But try and make that mealtime environment a bit more like engaging, get them to sit with their buddies, but also put them with some kids who do eat really well and some who don't. But like I say, I mean, I don't work in a school, so I really don't know what the environment is, and I've got no idea what my kids do at school. Are they all sitting together? Are they segregated on like packed lunches?
Do it differently. But one of the best things I remember doing at my school is I had a cohort years ago, and none of them ever seemed to want the daily fruit.
Okay. The free fruit.
Yeah, and I literally dumbed it down to the point where I remember I was sitting at the front. The kids sit on the carpet when they're little, because I'm in reception at the moment. And this was years ago, and they're all sitting on the carpet. And every day you'd bring the free fruit, and only less than a handful of children were wanting this fruit. And I was thinking, why is this? So one of the days I sat at the front and I picked up the pear, and I was like, this is a pear. A pear grows on trees. And then I started saying, I'm not sure I want to eat this pear. I haven't eaten a pear before. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking in my head, I don't think I'll bother.
Probably thought you were mad.
I know. But this is the point.
The teacher's gone crazy.
The teacher's gone crazy. I was like, But then I took it and in front of the class, I kind of bit it. And I was like, I'll have a small bite. Actually, it's quite nice. I quite like this. And I took another bite. And then when I offered the pears round then, loads of the children actually took it and at least tried it.
Can't expect the teacher to do that every lunchtime.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. But I thought, imagine if we did have the the investment in the pupils and in the staff and in this healthy eating, to have that time to do that.
And also to role model, to eat with them. Like I always say that in nurseries, if the staff can eat with the kids, it makes a massive difference as well. And you were saying about your nephew who's a really good eater. I think as well, like things like that around the table, if you've got a kid who is a really good eater, at the dinner time, we always focus all of our attention on what they're not doing, on the behaviours we don't want to continue. But actually we put all of our energy, all of our attention goes into that. So our kids are like, well, I get loads of attention for not eating, whereas we need to switch that. And the kids who eat well, you seem like you've really enjoyed that meal. That's where you get the attention. Watch him eating. He seems to be he's guzzling it. He's really enjoying it. That kind of focus. And the same at with teachers and at school time. Like if you can focus a bit more on the kids who are eating rather than the ones who aren't. But like I say, I think in a school it is so hard, and it's not really going to be at school where the behaviour change happens. Right. It is going to be more at home.
Is there a lot of luck as well if your kid's a good eater? Like are some kids just born better eaters and more like food, or is it just all the parenting?
There is a lot of genetics. There's a lot of genetics. So fussy eating, there are traits which mean that some children are more prone to be. But just like with other genetics, it doesn't mean that's not your destination. Yep. It's like that is you might be more prone to be that way, or sometimes to have an illness you might be prone to it, but actually what happens in your environment is what will shape that. So you can change it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It isn't just down to parenting. There's loads more. I mean, I've got 2 kids. My son is such a good eater. My daughter she does like her food, but she is a grazer. She is mental about ice cream, like mental. Whereas my son's completely nonchalant. He's like, yeah, I'll give or take. She is she's definitely such a different eater to him. She eats really small portions. If she could snack all day, she would snack all day. She's completely the opposite to my son. There's loads of genetics in it. And it's not all on parents. Like you haven't created this, but sometimes the way that we react isn't the best way to knock it on the head or to change it.
Both our kids are fussy. Both our kids are really fussy, and I just think it's something we've done. Like, is that a coincidence? Like,
I blame myself all the time. It's one of my biggest aspects of mum guilt, and I genuinely, I could be sitting in a pub.
Not you, we.
No,
I think we've
both
been the
of us,
same.
yeah. But I could be sitting in a pub, and I look over, and I'm like, their child's just eating their dinner, and I just feel sad for myself that I failed my children.
But you absolutely haven't.
And I just
how
look
you
at
kind
I'm
of
jealous.
feel though in the moment sometimes.
But also the guilt around parenting. I think that is what I was trying to say with social media these days. It's so easy to feel like you failed and you've got it wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, our parents didn't worry about all this. Do you know what I mean?
No.
They just threw us in. They didn't worry about health and safety or choking or, you know, nobody really cared.
No.
But whereas we overanalyze, we overthink, and we blame ourselves so much. But actually, parenting's really complicated, and there is nobody telling you this stuff. Nobody's told you from when your kids were really little. Nobody teaches you like how to feed them, what they should be eating, how to do that. Like none of it. And also throw in the fact that you got to go back to work really quickly as well. Like it's not an easy thing. So I don't think parents should blame themselves. But that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can change that will make the situation easier.
Yeah.
So, but those things can be really easy as well. So
there's something else I do that I really wanted to bring up, and I'm just gonna admit it, okay?
Is this at the restaurants?
Yeah. So
I really hate this. This is where we really disagree.
This is really bad. I don't know. Is it
I
really
think you're
bad?
accommodating the fussiness when you're doing this.
So basically, we do like a pub, don't we?
Yeah.
Dean and I, one of our favourite things to do, which is it's so ironic. What we love going out for food, but we do, and I feel like because our house is, unless our house is in perfect condition, I don't want to be in there.
cook.
I can't be in there.
Has it ever been
I can't be in.
there?
I know,
Perfect
exactly.
condition.
I never want to be in the house.
a
Not
vaguely perfect
but
condition. Yeah, I exactly.
I can see the carpet.
But I like to go out. I look forward at the weekends to going out for lunch, to going out
Yeah.
for dinner, or doing whatever, and I take the kids. And there's been a few instances where I've thought, no, I'm not going to do it. And let me explain. So, for example, if we're going to the pub and I think they're not going to, for example, some pubs do those, you know, the chicken nuggets, they're like beer battered and they're very greasy, and then the fish and chips is very greasy.
Yeah.
My kids hate that. They'll pick off the batter and eat the fish or whatever. Pick off the batter and eat the chicken. They hate it. And if I know that we're going to go to a pub and I look at the menu beforehand and I think, well, they're not going to eat that, they're not going to eat that, they're not going to eat that, I take a packed lunch. Or I feed them before we go.
Okay.
But then they never eat out because
they're not used to it.
They're not used to
Yeah.
it. That's what I believe. I think.
And I know I probably shouldn't, but also there's this double-edged sword of if I take them out and they don't eat, they're hangry and they're aggy and they just want to leave.
Yeah, and then it's non-enjoyable for you.
Yes.
Exactly.
I really, really feel you. I don't think it's like totally the wrong thing to do. No, but I think if you are people who enjoy eating out, I'm exactly the same. I love eating. I love not having to cook and, like you say, getting out of the house and eating food. If you are people who love that, then you do want to try and encourage them to be okay to do. I'm not saying that I don't think what you've done is necessarily wrong, because actually sometimes you need to just be able to give yourself that time so you can eat dinner stress-free and you've got something you know that they will eat. But what I would say is something that we've always done with our kids is sides. Like, here's our main meals. You can have some of our main meal, but here are the sides that we're going to have. And then again, allowing them, like you said, that harvester, tapping into some of those sides. Yeah. So here's a bit of salad or some sweet corn or something that you think that they actually will eat on the side. Even if it's like, you know, you've got some chips and some, you know, cucumber sticks or whatever there is. I think it is good to try and get them having something. Even if when you went out you took something, but you kind of asked for a plate and you kind of pop it on a plate, so they're having a part of your meal. Because if that's something you want to do in the long term and that is part of your kind of family tradition, then getting them involved in that.
Oh, big time. It'd be so much better.
I remember once we went with friends, and I remember being really embarrassed. We went to this pub in Tadworth, the Duke's Head, wasn't it? And we were when we went there with Nikki and Sophie, so we went to this pub and I was looking at this menu and I got the kids, I was like, Daisy, what do you want? Ruby, what do you want? Like, what do you want to have to eat? Anyway, and they looked and they didn't really want anything. So Daisy ended up getting nachos. I can't remember what Ruby got. Anyway, they basically, neither of them touched their food. And then I got that red snapper, like this red snapper in like a creamy sauce. And Daisy was looking over and she wanted mine. And I ended up letting her have my red snapper, and I ate her.
But you were like so excited she was eating
and
it.
I was
Made
just,
like
I
this
was,
massive
I
deal
did
out
make
of
it,
her.
I was just looking, I was like, oh my God. And then our youngest...
Went on about it all night.
Her friend had sausage and mash. I've never seen her eat sausage and mash in her entire life. She took one of the sausages off his plate, picked it up and started munching on it. And I thought... So that it's kind of like they're happy to eat other people's food, just not their own.
But it's that again. It's that role modelling. It's the role modelling. It's the giving them their own choices. And I think anytime you can do that, that's what my husband and I have always done. Here's our dinners. We know they're gonna have a bit of ours. So what we're gonna do, we're not gonna order them their own meal necessarily. We do for my son now, but we'll order sides. So they can have a bit of ours, a bit of this side, a bit of that side. It's autonomy, it's variety, it's allowing them to have a bit of choice. Definitely, I think that is such a great way of being able to do it. And the other thing I would add to that is when you do eat out with kids, it's the same as the school situation. It's distracting, especially if they've got other friends there. Yeah. There's other things they want to do, like they might want to go, be playing, or there's games, or there's something else. So I have really low expectations of what my kids are going to eat when we eat out. I don't expect them to sit with us for 30 minutes still and eat a full meal. Like, again, my son now, he will. Like, if we had a roast, he will have an adult's full roast and he will smash it. Ada will not. She'll be like, here's a bit of a potato that she's had off of our plate, and, she's got a side of, whatever, greens or something that she will tend to eat. But I don't have high expectations of what they're going to eat, because it is a different environment, and it is exciting, and there's other people and, distractions around. But that can really help. Definitely, if she wants to have what's on your plate, the nonchalance though, be nonchalant. Yeah, okay.
And don't make a big thing of it. Like,
let
that's
them
what
help
I would
themselves.
say.
Yeah.
And also, there's a learning curve in here for Dean here.
What's that then?
You're going to have to learn how to share food off your plate.
Oh, no, that'll hurt.
Order.
They can have yours. I'll just get something I know they won't have, like a hot curry or something.
Yeah. Oh, it's really
bit spicy.
They can have some rice. They can have the rice.
Yeah.
You've done that before.
I don't mind giving them my food.
He's got whitebait before, because Ruby seems to, like, they don't eat fish fingers or any, fish and chips or anything like that, but they'll eat bloody whitebait because they see him eating it.
Honestly, that role modelling. But
then you kept buying it, hoping for them to do it. So that's
basically what I used to do
happening.
is I need to buy the whitebait and say it's Daddy's whitebait, and then they'll eat it. If I buy them a portion,
also
just don't care. Just buy it, and if they eat, they eat. If they don't, they don't.
And when you're reading them the menu, it's A or B choice. Don't say what do you want.
Okay.
I do that with both my kids now. I'm like, do you want the macaroni and cheese, or do you want the roast? A and B. They got two options. They choose. And like I say, the sides thing really helps us, because if you can pick a couple of things that I'm guessing, but like sometimes you can get like mac and cheese or cauliflower cheese or a side of broccoli.
They'd want the broccoli.
Yeah. Or peas, like a side of peas. If you can get those little bits that they will eat, and then they can have a few little bits off your plate, brilliant. And that's a really, really good start. But I would do that. And like I say, have low expectations. Don't think we're going to be getting them to eat a full course meal in this time. Just think, what can we do to get them to eat some of it and actually enjoy our meal? Because I promise you guys enjoying food and them watching you enjoy food without you focusing on them and their eating will have more of an impact than anything else. Yeah. If, you already have said she wants the fish off your plate, they love the whitebait because you eat it. The ignoring what they're doing and the focusing on, I like this food, I'm going to enjoy this, and that being the focus of your meal will switch meal times around for you.
It's honestly a big change for us, though. Something we've just got to trust. When you just got to trust it, because we.
But also, they're not eating massive amounts. Right? I know that you said that both your girls do, but like you've got the problem right now. So actually, making changes, you're not going to make it worse by giving them independence, by being nonchalant, by taking the pressure off. You're not going to make it worse. Okay, you're going to. Let's say it either carries on or it gets better. You're not going to have them, because you're being nonchalant, because you're focusing on your food and your enjoyment of the food, you're not going to have them go the other way. So there's nothing to lose. Yeah. Honestly.
Even if they learn to eat one new food a week, or even one new food a month at this point, imagine where they could be in a couple of years' time if we can just
it's all
tell myself
changes.
to take it slow.
Yeah, I've been saying this to you for like 10 years. Just be relaxed, relax.
Says you.
I'm stressed because you're stressed.
Ruby just gives him Cocoa Pops every day. I'm like, oh, Dean, don't give him Cocoa Pops.
Well, sometimes I'm in a rush in the morning. I just can't.
It's that idea of constantly, we just constantly feel like we're on a rush and on the go, don't we? But Obviously, with Dean's social media following, and we are so grateful for all the people that listen to the podcast, we like to get them involved in our podcast as well. So we put out some questions, and we had some questions linked to this topic. So, Dean, do you want to pick out the question that we had the kind of most themes around and ask Charlotte for our listeners?
Yeah, so it was around screen time. So it was, we've got bad habits with screens at dinner time. Best way to approach stopping it.
Okay, so yeah, screens at dinner time is so controversial. You know, I totally get, you know, with some parents, when you need a break and you're like, right, I've got to just use it. Last resort, use the screen. The trouble is it becomes habitual, and loads of families say to me, the only way I can get my child to eat is if they've got a screen in front of them. The thing with that is, for me, like I've talked about on this podcast, is all about the long-term changes. So with kids, if they are focusing on a screen and they are eating their meal, we know from research that they're not actually thinking about what they're eating.
Yeah.
They're not observing the food. They're not noticing the smells, the textures, the tastes, or how it feels inside their tummy. So if they are distracted and they're looking at something else, and there's loads of research on adults around this as well, if we eat while we're watching films or TV, we eat more because our body isn't going, hold on, you've had enough, because it's not paying attention to that. It's paying attention to the screen. So it's the same with kids. And also, I love this idea of like getting kids to actually like food, to want to be around it, to enjoy the mealtime. And what you're doing by offering the screen is you're doing the exact opposite. You're teaching them, we need to distract you in order to get you to eat this stuff because it's not good. You don't want it. I don't want you to have it. But actually, if you do this and we get it in, like medicine, you know, you're like, I've got to give you the medicine. I know I've got to give it to you, but I'm going to distract you because it's a temporary thing. But with food, it's every day. It's 3 times a day. We need kids to go, okay, I am okay to be a part of this mealtime. I am okay to sit with this food in front of me. And that is really hard. And I would say you can either do cold turkey, no more screens at mealtimes, getting rid of it, deal with the tantrum. And it's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie, it is going to be hard. But cold turkey, or you can gradually start to shift away. So, you know, maybe twice a week you don't have the screen and the rest of the week you do. And then you gradually get it less and less. But honestly, teaching kids that food is important is so key. Otherwise, they're going to grow up always not wanting food, not enjoying food. And if we have to eat 3 times a day for the rest of our life, food is so important.
It's very important to me.
If you can get kids to love it, it's
food.
so important to me. If you can get kids to love food, like you're, you know, absolutely winning. And having the screen is going to do the exact opposite. It's going to teach them that this is not important. So gradually moving away from that would be an absolute tip. And I'm sorry, because I know lots of parents really hate hearing that advice.
Yeah. But it is.
On a holiday, I used a screen a couple of times.
Did you?
Yeah, the only way I could get her to eat in the calf bit.
But
Honestly, she just kept eating and eating because she knew she could watch more screen time.
Yeah.
She wanted more of the chip. Before that, she's like, don't like these chips.
Yeah.
And I was like, just, oh my God, I just need you to eat.
Yeah.
Give her my phone. Oh, sorry, I'm just being honest.
No, I think it's good.
I'm just being honest. So I gave her my phone, put on whatever
Yeah.
to watch, and then she was literally just eating and eating like that. And then she's like, I want some more chips. I was like, you don't. You just want to watch the screen longer because you know that if I, you finish now you've got no more screen time, and that's what happened.
But also,
just
like,
desperate for her to eat.
But also, that's fine. Like, that is not a failure doing that. Absolutely not. We've been out for dinner with friends of ours who their kids will only eat. So they're sitting and they've put a screen, and obviously our kids are both like and I'm going, oh, this is breaking me. But you know, we do it so awkward, and I'm like, okay, we're going to have to sit this one out. But honestly, like we all do it. Like, we've all relied on screens at some point, and that is not a problem. Like, parenting is really blooming hard, and I think if you're in those moments where you're like, I need this right now, don't ever think that's bad. It's the routines. That's when it's a problem. It's when it's constantly. If you guys go on holiday next week and you were like, we're going to have a screen, let them have the screens on one way. That's not going to cause long-term problems.
So stressful on holiday food when it was different types of food.
Absolutely.
It was even worse. It was like.
I thought holiday was going to be great because we put this we talked about it we did like an episode about evaluating our first ever all-inclusive holiday as a family.
Okay.
And the biggest part of that podcast was the food. I was so excited. I thought they're going to love this. We're going to be going down to the buffet. There's so much choice.
Yeah.
And it was an incredible choice. Like, we've never it was an amazing choice. it made them worse. It was too much choice.
My little one just had boiled eggs every morning.
She had boiled eggs.
So she'd eat.
Four boiled
and
eggs.
the egg whites, you have to take the yolk out. If it had a tiny bit of yellow on the white, she wouldn't touch it. I was like scraping this yolk out. It's like, oh my God.
My two both used to be fussy about the egg, but the opposite way. So my son would eat the yolk and my daughter would eat the white. I was like, this is winning.
Oh, there we go.
This is winning. No way. But that's the other thing, holidays. We haven't spoken about that. But again, the same with those meals out, low expectations. Don't worry about it. If your kids don't eat well for a week, that is fine. It's the routine they need, and they're out of routine, they're distracted, they're overtired, they're overstimulated, there's so much going on. It's completely unfamiliar food. They're going to be snacking, they're going to be eating much more of the ice creams and the cakes or whatever. Don't sweat those times. That's not your day-to-day life. No. So don't worry about those holidays ever, honestly. But it's the what goes on day-to-day at home that can make the big difference in the long term.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Can I ask you, Charlotte, for anyone who is listening who is a parent to a fussy child in terms of their eating, where can they look for guidance and support? Is there any way that you would direct them?
So, can I say my website?
Absolutely.
So, my website has so much information. I've been writing it for like 10 years, I think, and I pretty much blog a week, every single week for 10 years. There was a lot of information on there. So there's that. I also have a podcast which is called How to Feed, and I've got my book. My book called How to Feed Your Toddler, like we've already discussed today, it really will have lots of stuff in there that helps for older kids. There's step-by-step guides, there's psychology, it talks a lot about mealtime environment, it talks loads about how to take the pressure off meals. I think How to Feed Your Toddler will be a really good asset for you guys to have. Those are the places I'd say to go. If I'm just focusing on my advice.
No, but it's helpful because like I said, even just reading a few things on your page, it made me feel a bit better. But the thing is, every time I read stuff as well, I have this idea of, I can feel a bit better, I can try that. And then it
doesn't work for 2 minutes.
Yeah, but then in sneaks the guilt as well. Like, I should have done this years ago. But I'm going to try and just put the guilt to the side.
But also, like you're mentioning, like the persistence and consistency, those are two keys. And I find when I speak to parents about fussy eating, that's the one thing that I've tried everything. But you tried it once. Like, kids are everything. Like, I think about sleep. Like, if you ask anyone about sleep, consistency. Yeah. Same thing. Every day. Habit building. That's what works. And honestly, like, if, the main themes that I think I've spoken about today are the environment, like making it enjoyable and want to be there. Stop focusing on the food. Stop focusing on the pressure. Make it a really enjoyable time. I know that takes time, but actually if you can make those weekends really enjoyable for them, that pressure off.
No more weekend Chineses.
Focus on you guys enjoying the food, and I promise you, and conversation. Don't talk. I think I posted yesterday, and my tip was, one thing you can do at mealtimes, don't talk about the food other than, I'm really enjoying this. Don't talk about the food and then not eating it and then refusing it. Just avoid it, because all of that does is make it worse.
Just have one bite. Just lick it.
Yeah.
Lick it.
Just these two. Just eat this. Like a whole meal is like, just eat this bit.
But to get you to rethink that, what is the benefit of one bite?
Just exactly. Nothing.
Nothing.
It's like 15 calories.
Literally nothing.
Two more peas.
Yeah, have 2 more peas, and that will do nothing for you. But psychologically, it makes them want peas less.
Yeah.
It literally makes them be like, I'm being forced to eat peas. I don't want peas. This mealtime is not enjoyable. This is stressful. I don't want to be here. That's what I'm going to feel when I get and sit down at the table next time. But the benefit of those 2 peas is nothing. No. Nothing. So that's what you've got to reframe. It's the long-term gains.
We've got this. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And I'll say it again, wish I'd discovered you many years ago. But it's not too late, is it?
We've got this. I promise it's not too late.
Well, watch this space. We'll see how we get on the
Keep me
next
up to date.
month or so.
Thank you so much.
No worries. I loved it. Sorry if I talked loads, but I love it. I love this topic.
No, it's good. It's everything. I mean, it's kind of stuff that I'm thinking in my head. Why haven't I thought of this before? Yeah. But you just don't. You're a specialist for a reason, and thank you for your help.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I love that.